Okay, what is up, everybody? Welcome to this week's episode. Just gonna get something set up, and we'll be ready to go. Still holding off on new mic usage because I'm still trying to figure out how to set it up. So for now, I still have this mic present, but I do have a new microphone coming soon for podcast. Just still trying to figure out how to set it up. Set up. That is set up, and let's begin. What's up, everybody? Welcome to this week's episode of Benny and the Booth Podcast. On this week's episode, we've got MLB, some MLB news, not a lot, but some has popped up between this week and last week's episode. We've got NFL Week 13 recap with Week 14 predictions, and we've got college football conference championship games recap with how I do with predictions, the final CFP rankings, and the NY6 bowl games schedule, because all the other games don't really matter much. Let's get right into it. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to episode 1 of the podcast. Thank you so much for the support to this point. I very much do appreciate it. Oh boy, we've got college football is officially in bowl game season, and let's just start there. Predictions, I actually did pretty decent. So starting off with Friday night, had the Pac-12 conference championship game between number 3 Washington against number 5 Oregon. My surprise, Oregon was a 10-point favorite going in. 10 favorite. And keep in mind, Washington won the first matchup. So that just blew my mind, and I'm still wanting an explanation from Vegas. And guess what happened? Washington showed they are truly the better team by beating Oregon again, this time for the Pac-12, now 34-31. And this was a back-and-forth game. Both teams actually traded picks at one point, and Oregon had a lead, but Washington retook the lead, and the rest was history. But the point of this game, when I was watching the highlights, because it was on a Friday and I didn't watch the game live, the point that I knew Oregon had lost the game was Oregon's interception. Bo Nix, their quarterback, who used to be the quarterback of Auburn. Basically, the play was he could have just gone out of bounds and lost a couple of yards, and you said down, okay, that would be fine. Okay, you lose yards. So be it. But instead, he decides, you know what, I'm going to be dumb, and I'm just going to throw the ball, and it gets picked off. And it's just like, why, Bo Nix? Why? Now, another QB in the NFL actually did something similar sort of this week, but that's another story, and I don't know if I'm going to talk about it, but either way. But yeah, Bo Nix basically cost Oregon in this game, but Washington won 34-31. So that was one of my predictions I got right. Big 12 championship game which was start on Saturday. Texas just utterly dominated Oklahoma State 49-21. It was all Texas all game long, and they are the winner. Not much to say about this game. SEC championship game between Georgia and Alabama. This felt this would be the year Georgia would win. This felt like this would be the year they would beat Bama. And their 29-game win streak covering 2 years is over. They lost 27-24. They missed a field goal which really it shouldn't have been as far back because it was moved back because of a false start. But really, the big reason why Bama won this game is a Jalen Milroe show. 13 for 23 to 192 yards and 2 touchdowns. Also had 14 carries for 29 yards. It was all him practically, and Georgia just couldn't do anything. And also with early 43-yard field goal, Will Reichert now has 533 career points as a kicker, which is most in FBS history. But Bama won the SEC championship game, and that definitely shook up the rankings. We'll get to how that affected the rankings in a moment. Second last championship game to cover, Big Ten versus Iowa. Michigan took care of business 26-0. Well, relatively took care of business. But the problem is they didn't really because they were only up 10-0 at half. And yes, I get it. Iowa's a very good defensive team. But it should not be 10-0 at half. They should have been up by more. It felt like Michigan left points on the board. And it's like, congrats, you won this game. But did you really win this game with how many points you could have scored more? I don't know. But the one crazy fact from this game is Tony Taylor had a 57-yard punt return, which led to a Michigan touchdown, which is the longest Big Ten championship game in history. And in the ACC championship game, Florida State beat Louisville 16-6 in a very bad game. Third-string quarterback did trash, and Louisville did not much at all. So, final CFP rankings. Who are the top 4 teams? Well, yeah, I'll start with top 4. Number 1, from moving up from 2 from last week, is Michigan. Number 2, moving up from 3, is Washington. Number 3, moving up from 7, is Texas. So it'll be Washington and Texas in the Sugar Bowl. Number 4, moving up from 8, is Alabama, which, yes, Georgia is sitting out of the CFP because they lost to Bama. And that also means Michigan will be taking on Bama for the Rose Bowl for the college football playoffs. Number 5, moving down from 4 is Florida State. Number 6, moving down from 1 is Georgia. Number 7, moving down from 6 is Ohio State. Number 8, moving down from 5 is Oregon. Staying at number 9 is Missouri. Staying at number 10 is Penn State. Staying at 11 is Ole Miss. Staying at 12 is Oklahoma. Staying at 13 is LSU. Moving up from 14 to 15 is Arizona. Moving down from 14 to 15 is Louisville. Moving up 1 16 is Notre Dame. Moving down 1 from 16 to 17 is Iowa. Moving up 18 to 18 is NC State, North Carolina State. Moving up 1 from 20 to 19 is Oregon State. Moving down 2 from 18 to 20 is Oklahoma State. Tennessee stays at 21. Clemson moving up to 22 from 23. Liberty moving up from 24 to 23. SMU, that was not ranked. They won their conference championship game. They are 24. They are at 24, and Kansas State stay at number 25 and dropped from the rankings completely with Tulane, who was 22 last week. That's the final rankings. So the New Year's 6 bowl games, I'm not going to give predictions till around the week of the 29th because that's when the games are going to be kicking off. But to give you the schedule, Cotton Bowl Classic, which will be Friday, December 29th, is going to be number 9, Missouri of the SEC against number 7, Ohio State of the Big Ten from Cowboys Stadium. That's going to be should be an interesting game. One thing I forgot to write down stupidly is times for these games. That game is going to be at 8 p.m. on ESPN. All of the New Year's 6 bowl games are going to be on ESPN. This should be an intriguing game. Ohio State has opened as a favorite. But Ohio State also is having 12 different players transfer, some starters, some not, which will make things even more interesting for this game. But that is the Cotton Bowl Classic. That will be December 29th from Jerry's World, a.k.a. Dallas Cowboys Stadium. The next New Year's Six Bowl game will be the very next. Well, we got two on the very next day. The Peach Bowl from the Falcon Stadium, with being number 11 Ole Miss from the SEC against number 10 Penn State from the Big Ten. That'll be at 12 p.m. Also on ESPN of 12 p.m. This could be an interesting game. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Yeah. Just fixing notes for a moment. And then the other game that day is going to be the Orange Bowl between number 6 Georgia, the SEC, and number 5 Florida State, the ACC. Two teams that barely missed out. And that game is going to be at 4 p.m. This should be an intriguing game with both teams having just missed out at CFP and trying to prove that they should have been in instead of just missing out. But I guess we'll find out. Opening line, by the way, for the Peach Bowl is Penn State is a 3.5-point favorite. And the opening line for the Orange Bowl, and this is as of Tuesday, December 5th, Florida State is a 14-point underdog to Georgia. That is a pretty big line for that game. I mean, not surprising, but that is big. December 31st, there's no bowl games. Then January 1st, we get first the Fiesta Bowl at 1 p.m. between number 23, Liberty of CUSA, and number 8, Oregon of the Pac-12. Maybe something. And then finally we get into the actual college football playoff games. New Year's. 5 o'clock, we get Alabama versus Michigan at 5 p.m. And at 8:45, Bowl between number 3, Texas, and number 2, Washington. And January 8th will be the national championship game in Houston, Texans Stadium. With Roseville being in it, they have their own stadium. The Sugar Bowl is going to be in the same stadium. Fiesta Bowl will be in the Arizona Cardinals Stadium. Orange Bowl is in the Dolphin Stadium, by the way. Opening line for the Fiesta Bowl, Oregon is a 15.5-point favorite. Opening line for the college football playoff games, Michigan's a 1.5-point favorite, which is interesting. And Texas is a 4-point favorite, even though they are the lower seed. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out, but that is how it is working out. That is how it works. That is how it is set up. And we'll see what happens. Well, once we get to the week of the 29th episode, which is probably going to be December 26th, I will give my New Year's Six bowl game complete predictions from the non-CFP bowl games of the New Year's Six to the CFP bowl games. National championship may or might not include, or if not, I'll just wait till national championship game. We actually know who's playing, but we'll see. The only MLB news, really, nothing exciting, but they announced the reliever of the year for this year for both leagues. American League is Felix Bautista, a.k.a. Big Mountain, which makes sense. Very good reliever. Season was cut due to injury. And then Kevin Williams of the Milwaukee Brewers also makes sense, had a great year. And then the non-mattering Hall of Fame ballot, which was all just managers, umpires, and executives. Jim Leland is the only one that makes it into the Hall of Fame from that ballot. Congrats to him. Well-deserved. A very great manager for a whole bunch of teams. One, maybe more at least one World Series. But well-deserving. But, again, that ballot just doesn't really mean much. I'm sorry to Jim, but not really much of a mattering ballot. Anyways, NFL Week 13 recap. Thursday Night Football, Seahawks, Cowboys. DK Metcalf had a 73-yard, 22.23 mile per hour touchdown on a slant, which is the fastest max speed by a ball carrier on a touchdown since Raheem Mostert in 2020. I was at Jets Falcons, of course. The Falcons won 13-8. The problem with this game for the Jets, and they're aside, they didn't get any touchdowns. They only had safety and 2 field goals. But the biggest problem was anytime they would get momentum, false start, Jets, not offsides, holding, Jets. So any sort of penalty on the Jets would be called to back them up, and it just was like absurd how many times they were getting flagged. Don't get me wrong, MetLife's great stadium, definitely worth to go to games for, but that was just like, I left early because the Browns game was like starting while the Jets game was still finishing, and 2, like, I knew at a certain point this game was over. The Jets were not coming back. They even benched Tim Boyle for Simeon, and I knew at a certain point this game's over. Pack your bags. There ain't gonna be a comeback, and it did not happen. Also, the Falcons have like an absurd consecutive defensive drives without allowing a touchdown. That's like an NFL record. I think it's like 22 or 23. Watching it not from my seat. So that's the problem, was it was raining bad. But yeah. Browns, Rams. Joe Flacco had a great game and also became the first Browns quarterback all time with completions to 9+ receivers in his team debut. Except the Browns lost 36-19 versus the Rams. Problem was they got like a touchdown and all they needed was an extra point to tie it, and it missed. And basically the Rams took over from that point on. Big part from a Josh Johnson third interception versus the old team, which Flacco could have just gone tackled or gone out of bounds or something, but threw a pick that basically shifted momentum, and Browns just couldn't look back, and they even got safety again this week, which is painful. But I would say I had lost hope to this year, but then this week got more interesting, and we'll get to that momentarily. Chargers beat the Patriots 6-0 on 2 38-yard field goals. New England's first New England's first Super Bowl team in NFL Super Bowl era to go winless through a 3-game stretch in which they surrendered no more than 10 points in each game. Going back to the 1938 Cardinals, it's also their first ever 5-game losing streak since 1995. James Conner versus old team in the Steelers, 25 carries, 2 touchdowns. The Cardinals 24-10 win over the Steelers. Brock Purdy, 19 for 27, 314 yards, 4 touchdowns, 2 carries for 9 yards. Christian McCaffrey, 17 carries, 93 yards, and a touchdown, 3 catches for 40 yards. And Deebo Samuel, 4 catches, 116 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 carries, and 22 yards and touchdown. Leads San Francisco dominant over Philly, 42-19. San Francisco, at the end of the first quarter, only had like 6 yards, and they went off from there and won this game. Yeah, it's like crazy. You see that stat, and then all of a sudden, boom, 49ers trying to switch and just whoop the Eagles. Bad. Sunday Night Football, the Packers pull off the upset over the Chiefs 27-19, putting even more concern on the Chiefs. There was also missed pass interference in the end, but that's another story for another day. And the Bengals actually pull off an upset over the Jaguars 34-31 in overtime, but the main reason why that happened was Trevor Lawrence went down with injury and Christian Kirk went down with injury, who's basically one of their biggest weapons at wide receiver. And he's out for the season. Trevor Lawrence has got a high ankle sprain, and that ain't a small injury. That's a big injury. And I imagine he probably isn't playing this week. He's going to try to rehab through it and try to play this week, but in a serious injury. I'm pretty sure Myles Garrett had something similar to that in his rookie year. Hold on. I'm pretty sure Myles Garrett, beginning of the year, had some sort of injury like that. Yeah, right high ankle sprain. Literally, in his rookie year, Myles Garrett had right high ankle sprain. In practice on September 6th and missed 4 games of the season. I mean, it didn't matter towards that season because, well, that was the 0-16 year, but literally Myles Garrett had the same injury, missed games. I'd imagine Lawrence is not going to play this week, which is huge for the Cleveland Browns. But dumb decision by the Browns is Flacco sent down to the practice squad because DTR might be back this week. But after Flacco's performance, I don't think DTR should start this year, but we'll see. Either way, that's the week recap. This week in predictions, I went 7-6. Not the best predictions week, but at least over 500. I'm 119-74 all overall this year. Standings from here on out, I'm just going to go AFC and NFC flat out and not even go into the division. So AFC standings, Tie for first between the Dolphins and the Ravens at 9-3. Followed by a tie for third between the Chiefs and the Jaguars at 8-4. Followed by a tie for fifth, four-way tie for fifth place between the Steelers, Browns, Colts, Texans, and then a three-way tie for ninth. I'm not including every team. Steelers and Panthers are the official teams eliminated, but there are certain teams that are like I consider pretty much eliminated at this point. But Broncos, Bengals, and Bills all at 6-6 in a three-way tie for ninth. And then the NFC Eagles in first place at 10-2, followed by a two-way tie for second between the 49ers and the Lions. And fourth place is the 6-6 Falcons. Fifth is the 9-3 Cowboys. Tie for four-way tie for sixth between the Vikings, the Packers, the Rams, and the Seahawks, all at 6-6. Week 14 predictions. Thursday night football, Patriots at Steelers. Much of a game. I have the Steel. Well, then again, I actually want to see something because that game just became more interesting with Pickett status up in the air. Most people are still picking the Steelers. I mean, then again, the Patriots have not scored much points in the last few weeks. And I'm still going to pick Steelers. Sunday, we kick off. Sunday, have a whole bunch of games. Buccaneers and Falcons, I have the Falcons. Lions at Bears, I have the Lions. Colts at Bengals, I have the Bengals. Jaguars at Browns, which before the Trevor Lawrence and Christian Kirk news, I picked Jacksonville's going to blow them out. Now Cleveland has a good shot, and I'm picking Cleveland. They have more of a shot if Trevor Lawrence is down because he's going to be CJ or someone else, and which that means they're going to really be more relying on Travis Etienne than anything because they're probably not going to want because Beathard and whoever the other backup is are not good. So I'm picking Cleveland. I'm going to be at this game, actually, though. Might be ringing, but we'll see what happens. Panthers at Saints, I have the Saints. Texans at Jets, I have the Texans. Rams at Ravens, I have the Ravens. Vikings at Raiders, I have the Vikings. Seahawks at Niners, I have the Niners. Bills at Chiefs, I have the Chiefs. Well, actually, do I even want to go that direction after Sunday Night Football? Because, I mean, the Bills have been struggling this year, but Kansas City had it rough. Most people are still picking Kansas City, oddly enough. And, I'll still stick Kansas City. Hope they bounce back this week. Broncos at Chargers. I have the Chargers. Sunday Night Football, big game. Eagles at Cowboys. Eagles coming off that struggle loss to the 49ers. Cowboys having some wins here and there. I have Philly, though, winning this game. Monday Night Football, we got a doubleheader. Titans at Dolphins. I have the Dolphins. Packers at Giants. I have the Packers. That is my Week 14 predictions. And that is it for this week's episode of the podcast. Let's wrap things up. Thank you so much for watching this week's episode of Benny and the Booth podcast. On next week's episode, we will have NFL Week 14 recap with Week 15 predictions. Any MLB news that could be happening between now and then. And if there's anything college football important news, then that as well. Thank you so much for watching and listening. If you are new on YouTube, leave a like, hit the subscribe button, leave the notification button so you're notified when I go live and or post a video. If you're new on audio, follow the podcast, leave a review, hit notification button so you're notified when I post on there. Thank you so much for watching and listening, and I will see you in next week's episode 105. Bye-bye.